If you own a business today in Malaysia, you must be ready for digital transformation.
When you look at e-invoicing and the modernization of e-invoicing, it removes the traditional aspect of a billing methodology to more digitalized billing.
E-invoicing is a critical dot that connects the digital economy.
And of course, when you modernize this aspect of it, everything else follows.
So stay connected on Decimal Point as we explore this further. The Inland Revenue Board of Malaysia, or LHDN, has introduced e-invoicing to revolutionize how businesses manage their invoices. But why is this important? Today, we explore the progress of e-invoicing in Malaysia and across ASEAN countries and how this digital shift is transforming trade and tax systems in the region. But before I move on to my next question, could you tell me more about your background and also your expertise when it comes to e-invoicing?
Yeah, so as a managing director of Hernancres Group of Companies, we are a chartered accounting company, and we focus on the area of specialized taxes. So when you look at specialized taxes, we are looking at transfer pricing, we are looking at the corporate restructuring, and now we specialize in the area of e-invoicing. When you look at e-invoicing, because we are looking at a lot of cross-border transactions and we focus on companies to restructure, then we can advise on the adoption of e-invoicing for their companies.
I see. And what's your take when it comes to e-invoicing? How can it modernize Malaysia's financial ecosystem and also make it more tax compliant?
So when you look at e-invoicing and the modernization of e-invoicing, we are looking at how we can actually digitalize processes. We remove the traditional aspect of the billing methodology to more digitalized billings, and of course when you modernize this aspect of it, everything else follows. Now the LHDN is looking at how to digitalize this aspect by validating each invoice. So when you have a manual invoice, now you can't get it validated because the LHDN has put out kind of a portal for you to send in your invoice, digital invoices, right? You can even use the portal to generate these invoices, and then you get it validated by the LHDN, right? So in this case, you'll notice that tax compliance now becomes a little bit more on a higher level, because manual-based invoices can be, you can lose this invoice and so on. But when you look at things like tax compliance, now the LHDN is now trying to cast a little bit more, a wider net, for all these transactions. One aspect I can give you the statistical data for a country like Mexico, right? Okay. They have actually increased their tax revenues by 48%. Wow. From the year 20, almost 50%, right? So 48% tax revenue from 2012 to 2017. Mm-hmm. So now, just by implementing a simple, digitalization of e-invoicing, you start now casting a little bit more wider net. It's better revenue for the country, and it's now you're getting the aspect of modernization of your processes and automation of your processes, and following back to the digital agenda of the country itself. So I suppose it's a good thing. Of course there's other challenges that we have to look at it, but the opportunities are wide and the growth aspect is quite good.
Yeah, I like how you mentioned about if you lose on your invoices, so it's something like a cloud-based kind of thing where you won't lose any of your e-invoices, since now it always has to go through a platform or through a system, and everything is more digitalized, everything is traceable, everything is trackable.
Yeah.
But why do it now? Why specifically at this time? Maybe not maybe like 3 years ago, 5 years ago, or maybe 10 years down the road. Why around this time?
Yeah, I suppose falling back to the automation agenda or a digital technology agenda that we have right now from the Kementerian Digital and so on, So I suppose looking at the global aspect of things, we are doing trade with New Zealand, we're doing trade with all of these Australias and all these American companies, they are also adopting digitalization in a wide aspect. So are we going to be left behind? Like Saudi Arabia, for example, they are also implementing e-invoicing. They've actually successfully implemented e-invoicing. So again, if we are going to be manual based, you leave the efficiency out, you don't be effective as well, and you're making decisions slower. So in this situation whereby, if you want to become innovative, high value nation, you want to make decisions faster, and your customers or your suppliers expect you to make decisions faster, then I suppose you have to adopt this digitalization process. How many of us found out about cloud?
Yeah, that's right.
We just found out about cloud, we found out about, Google Drive and all of this aspect of things because of COVID, right?
Yeah.
Everyone, started finding new ways to communicate because they were staying at home. So you were asking me, when do you start? Why now you start? The question is that why not now? It should have been a long time ago.
Yeah.
But obviously we needed something to push ourselves. There's a lot of MNC companies that is going and digitalizing their whole processes.
Yeah.
Why not mid-tier companies or SMEs start to get into this aspect of things?
It's also been said that e-invoicing helps facilitate real-time data collection and also enhance business processes. Could you explain more about that?
Yeah, so the first one, I suppose, for the LHDN perspective would be the regulatory compliance. So obviously, real-time data sharing with tax authorities encourage them to act faster, and obviously for businesses out there, they have to be a little bit more vigilant, right? So obviously, when you give things like your transactions and billings to the LHDN to validate this e-invoice, there is this aspect whereby you get the LHDN coming to you faster, or rather audits can be done more progressively. Okay. Right. So which means that is also an effective aspect of by the LHDN aspect, to get businesses to be get their controls right quickly. When you get certain softwares that's been inputted into the companies, right? You kind of balance things out, and when the requests come from the LHDN for an audit, you can pick up this data quickly and present it to them. Of course, we have immediate data access. Yes. So when you automate things, when you start to digitalize certain aspect of your processes, you get stuff real time. That means management decisions becomes better. Plus you have a statutory requirement for an audit, for example. Now all this information that you're getting is faster. So it can be an expectation or an assumption by the LHDN for you to get things all sorted out quickly when it comes to an audit. There is a time frame for, when they give you, they ask you for audit materials or audit information, there is a time frame for it. Yes. But now they can have a limited time frame where you have to come up with all of data. They can make an assumption that way. This might be something of a pull again, as I just mentioned, for you to start automating your processes.
Yeah. In other words, companies do not really have an excuse to, hey, I don't have this data, because it all should be at your fingertips, since it's data, it's at real time. You're able to extract that information at any time, since it's already in the system. In line with the 12th Malaysia Plan, e-invoicing is a key effort to enhance the efficiency of Malaysia's tax administration management and strengthen the digital services infrastructure, reducing the need for manual data entry and minimizing error. the e-invoicing is being rolled out in different phases based on the company size. Could you break it down for us?
Yeah, so LHDN have just mentioned there's 3 different phases. The first phase started way much in August. So those companies with 100 million and above, they should be adopting this for e-invoicing. In between, there was obviously some teething issues with LHDN. Any type of implementation, new implementation, even bringing back to the GST days, there were teething issues. So one must understand any new implementation, there will be some issues and problems. So they have extended the e-invoicing with some exemptions for those who have not implemented this. You are supposed to be doing a self-bill invoice, right? There's a small exemption there in the regulation. So any companies doing 25 million to 100 million, right, that's phase 2, supposed to be implemented by January 2025, and the next one will be the upcoming July. And after July, I'm sure the LHDN will always go back to the data and see how many of them have adopted it. They are consistently reassessing the situation. So I suppose we have to learn about the announcements later on. But for now, I suppose they are a little bit more lenient, and they are expecting for companies to start getting into the platform quite quickly.
You mentioned everyone have to do e-invoicing. Are there any exemptions for any, certain size of company or individuals?
Yeah, this is an intriguing question, isn't it, Shaun? Who is off the loop over down here of where the net has been cast, and who is the fishes that's not in the net?
Yes.
Okay, anyway, obviously the LHDN has given some exemptions. Number one exemption is those people who are not doing any business.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
So if you're not doing any type of businesses, you're just an employee, getting salary, then obviously you're not part of this e-invoicing platform or agenda.
Okay.
Then we have those businesses, whether big businesses, small businesses, doesn't matter. You have an annual turnover of 150,000 and below. Then you are exempted for the e-invoicing platform. You don't have to generate an e-invoice.
Okay.
Apart from that, you have government and government agencies and government bodies. These are also exempted from e-invoicing.
Okay, but what, for example, I have a company, I'm generating about 155,000 a year, and I do not want to participate in this e-invoicing thing. Will the government come and get someone to catch me, or how does it go about? Are these people still safe?
Okay, there's 2 aspects of it. There's a practical aspect of it. Okay, the practical aspect is that if you are in the e-invoicing platform, you reach 155,000. Generally, even if you are not reaching 150,000, you might want to be in the e-invoicing platform because you're dealing with customers who are in the e-invoicing platform. So when customers are, or rather you are supplying to these customers, they will request from it for an e-invoice from you, because as I told you, the e-invoice is one part where it's going to be automated, right, or digitalized. So they are digitalizing their process. So they want something from you which actually fits their process. So government is giving you the exemption, but inherently what happens is that, do you want to be in the platform or not? So once you talk about smaller businesses, the adoption levels are lesser. But if they require to do e-invoicing, then it trickles down. You need to do your checking. So if you are not dealing with those, if you're not dealing with the companies who are doing more than 150,000, or you're just dealing with an individual and you're doing 150,000 and below, then I suppose you can skip this aspect of e-invoicing. But again, we have to see what the government puts their foot down on, LHDN puts their foot down on. It can be the case that even if you are not e-invoice compliant, they might ask the customers who are e-invoice compliant to do a self-billing invoice.
Okay.
Right. It is already in the system. But then again, the move towards automation must be there. So the time frame may be longer, but I suppose by the government and the LHDN will be actually executing this on a bigger front, maybe in 6 years' time. We have to have a little bit more time for everyone to be in the platform. E-invoicing is here and is to stay. It's a mandatory requirement for anyone that's doing above 150,000 annually.
With e-invoicing, Malaysia is aligning its invoicing standards with international practices. This makes it easier for businesses to comply with local and global regulations. Looking at the bigger picture, where is Malaysia now as compared to our neighboring countries? Are we in line? Are we behind? Are we forward?
We have probably fallen a little bit backwards because we had the GST implemented. So in general, the GST should be implemented first before the e-invoice comes in.
Okay.
But since the GST now has been removed and the e-invoice is here, so then we have to look at the e-invoice portion. So there's a lot of countries who have adopted VAT, value-added taxes, like things like GST and so on. They have now moved a bit more faster and adopted digitalization faster. Even in the UK, do you know that if it might be the case that you might not look at e-invoicing, but you can sit down and run your business here in the UK. You can buy a house in UK, just click of in your computer, you know, you can just click a button and then you can buy a house, you can buy a car, you can even do whatever you want by a click of a button.
Yes.
So are we ready yet? Are we the person that we still want to feel and touch? Now, we are talking about e-invoicing here, but I suppose this is one small aspect that can lead us to a nation that is able to do that in the future.
It seems that Malaysians have to play catch-up with other ASEAN countries like Singapore and Indonesia in terms of e-invoicing. Small and medium-sized enterprises or SMEs may struggle with the cost and resources required to transition to e-invoicing. Now, I understand that bigger corporations may have their own tax employees to run all this e-invoicing, but when it comes to smaller businesses, for example, like the mom and pop shops or independent grocery shops, for example, implementing e-invoicing could be very difficult for them, maybe from just acquiring software or investing in certain equipment, or even as simple as just using the online platform. How can the government help businesses like this?
Well, Shaun, I've mentioned to you the opportunities and the growth of implementing e-invoicing, but there is also the challenges part. I've not mentioned much on the challenges portion, but if you look at the challenges portions, which you just mentioned on the software implementation, on the personnel that you have to get for e-invoicing, then I suppose this is where extra costs will be needed. And obviously the government has put things in order for smaller MSMEs, you know. So things like a tax deduction has been given of 50,000 for anything specific for e-invoicing. Okay. Anything pertaining to trainings as well can be also stated, and that's also given a tax deduction over down there. There is also the My Tax portal where you have a lot of guideline. There is certain help desks that you can give them a call and see whether that can help you in terms of implementation of e-invoicing. The My Tax portal also will be coming up with some kind of application for your phone application for you to also implement e-invoicing for your company as well. So there's this broader aspect of platform usage which the IRB is given or LHDN is given, and also the tax deductions has been given, and of course there's a lot of training programs out there. Okay. So as I told you, e-invoicing is here and is to stay. It's a mandatory requirement for anyone that's doing above 150,000 annually. So which means that you will require to get some trainings, get the understanding, get the know-how, get to the platforms, register yourself, and start taking some actions to implement it.
Wonderful. And e-invoicing is supposed to make revenue collection more efficient. But are there any potential loopholes in e-invoicing?
Okay, so the loopholes are probably on the technical aspect of things, the implementation of it, whether you get it right the first time. Majority of us, because we are going into something of a change into our processes, so we will have difficulty adopting something new. So when you do things on the manual, you want to transition into digital. Of course, there's some documents that might not be available. How are you going to implement this in the digital form? In the digital form, how are you actually doing your reporting standards? So the technical aspect of things will be there. So obviously the transmission of data will also be affected in this sense, because obviously all this need to mature. So once the maturity has happened, then obviously these loopholes can be covered. Apart from that, you also have the cyber security risk. So in that situation, when you have your e-invoicing going out of your company now, you're going for validation, and then it comes back to your company and goes directly to the customers there. How this would affect the overall aspect of things, So what are the cybersecurity measures that you will put into the company? Now, again, all of these are big challenges for smaller businesses. More important is that whether the information flow is good at this stage. The information flow is pretty good to the LHDN. Once the information flow is pretty good, then you can actually look at other challenges like cybersecurity measures and so on for your company.
I like that you touch about cybersecurity, because when it comes to e-invoicing, as you mentioned, there is a lot of data going here and there, and things are transparent, but sometimes it can be a bit too transparent when someone who is not supposed to access this data actually has it. And because of this, what are the data security concerns when it comes to e-invoicing?
Obviously, there's two aspects to it. Okay, the first aspect would be your company itself. Obviously, you'll be very concerned. Most businesses have confidential terms and conditions. You have high value contracts which you cannot expose, So all of this goes back to the e-invoice billing, right? So there's exposure there. We all know, even LHDN understands this exposure, but obviously the onus is on the company itself, on the PDPA aspect of things, and to how to control the data that's supposed to be linked. Obviously, you can work together with the LHDN on having a discussion with them on certain high-profile projects that you're doing and so on. They will understand certain aspect of it. LHDN has already given standard descriptions and codes, so you can actually use these codes and descriptions. They would understand the transaction as well, right? On the LHDN part, I suppose they have already mentioned that all of this data, the invoices that has been put, there's cybersecurity measures, protocols that's put in place for the platform as well. So all the measures has been put in place on their aspect of implementation of e-invoice. They have also mentioned that the e-invoice will be immediately validated. So which means that what I would assume that IRB has already implemented some form of protocol to secure this data, and before it has been, so it's not, there's no human involved in this. There's all complete, probably artificial intelligence and infrastructure on the IT aspect.
One of the significant benefits of e-invoicing is its ability to reduce tax evasion. Transactions are transparent and easily traceable, making it more difficult for dishonest practices to go unnoticed. This leads to more consistent revenue collection, which supports public services and infrastructure. It's an exciting time for digital innovation in Malaysia on Decimal Point.